Well, here we are, back in Mittenrahm at the end of 2024, just 2 days to go. This is my review of the year's work, which is entirely contained in this single shot, except for like 2 reefs that I added to a couple of locations that had been Christmas built in previous years. Not something I've done on a regular basis. I haven't really gone out of my way to do them. I had an idea, but I wasn't prepared to leave the end for any real amount of time. But here we are. The render distance is on 42. My computer may make some noise about this. But yes, everything is here. We'll go over it. The state of the build in the end of 2023 was the Aetherium was the front quarter was present, the statues weren't. We'll take a better look at those shortly. The bottom half had been built up, the sphere. You can't see it very well from here, but there's a central sphere. And the lower half was, I think, pretty much done by that point, and it was just the upper 3 quarters left to go before the statues were to be done. From there, I moved on to building. Oops. Don't know what that was. But yes, from there, I moved on to building these 2 central figures. There's significance to everything happening here. There's a story. I'll probably touch on some of it as we move around, but for now I'm looking, I'm saving a full accounting of the situation here for a final video of the project here. At the same time, or kind of intermixing with the 2 central figures, I dressed up the end island, built the central temple, fiddled with the obsidian pillars, obviously shrunk the amount of end stone. Again, we'll take a closer look at that, and then I obviously moved on to Morn here. Ignore that, that's just a location for me to go back to take it gives me a decent view of the of Morn and the body as it progresses. So I'm going to take a moment to turn down the field, the render distance, because I'm not going to be able to move around very well with it on all the way. So this is what you can see with the render distance as 16. We'll take a look at the end island first. As I say, and I've covered this in many videos, a lot of work was done using the fill command to literally swap the end stone for the core terracotta color, so the yellow terracotta, and the green terracotta over there, and the purple, and then additional work was done purely by hand. The kind of the aim here is to indicate that the end island is in the process of becoming what the player would know in one day. But for now, the elemental powers are still present despite about 1,000 years passing since the destruction of the end. Got some wisps of ether still floating around. There's probably more here than I'm depicting, but I don't want to go mad with the glass effect. It looks nice there. This stuff, not so bad, but I was still learning what I wanted to do, which is why it's a bit too bitty in the middle, but I then move on to these much bigger swirls. I quite like the way that it comes out. I'm not quite sure what's happening there. There's a distinct light blue, and I don't know what's causing it. Oh, I see. It's a combination of the lichen and seeing it at an angle, so I can see like a double layer, the fog effect that many people make use of. It doesn't work so well when you don't have connected textures. So this is just fragments of the end island that I've constructed by hand. Well, the core of these 3 blue islands was done using the fill command to simply generate a block of terracotta, and then dressed it up by hand, and the lower brown parts were completely by hand. Yeah, so there's a lot of features here that tell us a little bit of a story, even though it's not necessarily obvious. Actually, in fact, in a similar sense, there is a story going on here that may become clear if you pay attention to what you're looking at as we move around at smaller locations. We'll take a look at the ether next. So, from this point of view, except for the statues, you would have seen it looking like this at the end of last year. But obviously, the whole thing has been finished. Got statues representing the 4 elements, plus kind of typical guardian statues, I really think of them as, probably representing particularly well-known heroic figures in Grey Knight history who have been immortalized in these statues. But yeah, so we've got the fire guy over here. I actually did him first. I don't think there was any particular reason. I was probably just the fire effect. I like doing it. I like making use of that. The fact that the palette for it is actually quite extensive. I really haven't used all of what's available, but I think I used enough to build something that worth looking at. Yeah, so this would have been like hollow with just a green wire frame for where the curves would be to help me keep track of where I was going. And this obviously the water. I feel like it's not very distinct unless you're looking at the right angle, but we've got basically 2 hippogriffs pulling a cart in which the one warrior is sat, ready to hurl his trident, which I just love the way this came out. I don't know why, like, it's just perfect for me. The leaves just hanging off it, I don't know. It just really came out nice, and I didn't really know what I was planning either, but I feel like the hippogriffs came out quite well, but it's maybe just a bit too cramped. Maybe the cart should have been up slightly further, I don't know. We've got this guy. I was trying very hard to think of something other than a dragon for here. Dragons do have an Earth association, known for living in caves underground, and so on. I purposely minimized the wing size so that I didn't go too heavy on the idea that this was a flying dragon. It may have been able to, or dragons aren't exactly a feature of the Empire, so it was a bit of an odd choice. But really nothing else came to mind. Now the reason that part of this is stone is because although everything had been done in colour, I was not happy, and I felt they stood out too much, too colourful, and I wanted to make the creatures stone again. And I started to do it here to see what it might look like. I think it looks pretty good, but then it's supposed to be the earth element, so being stone, still in keeping with its actual what it's supposed to represent. The air, not so much. I did convert, I think, part of the face before, yeah, this side of the face basically, and I just simply haven't gotten around to putting it back. I think they would have all looked fine as a stone statue. Over time, I've just kind of become a little indifferent. One wing is actually bigger than the other because I decided that they did stand out a little bit too much, and so the wing on the right here has shrunk in an effort to just bring it down a notch. I can't bring myself, I can't motivate myself to do the other wing now. It's like, I've done it, it's there, it is what it is, and that's just the way it's going to be. So we've got 4 statues here representing what are called the primordials. This is something I've covered in another video as well. Fear, anger, hate, and suffering. But yeah, I mean, I'm generally pleased with it. I struggle with being pleased with what I've done. But you know, it's just something I have to deal with. There's a few bits of interior. Well, I say a few bits. Depending on which part you're in, there's quite a lot of interior. This goes all the way back to the center. There is a waterfall there, but there's more on the other side of it. Aquariums. I did try to put in all of the water-based animals, but there are issues with doing that. The fish won't stay spawned. The dolphins die when you're too far away because they need air to breathe, and they become static if you're out of render distance, and suffocate underwater. So only the axolotl and the turtles will stay spawned. I don't think I've tried spawning the fish with names. The tropical fish are still here, they never went anywhere. But the salmon and cod refuse to stay put. But yeah, there's bits and pieces of interior. So, then we've got Aurelian, who is the Lord of the Elements, forged in a place called the Mordell in the overworld. The location is actually in the previous video, I believe, for 2023, that will actually be linked at the end of this video. So he's very instrumental in what's going on here, for bringing it together, making it happen. I've tried as best I can to avoid him looking like anything. There's hints of a dragon, but he definitely has 2 proper front arms, which in fairness most dragons do. Head, bat-like, ape-like. This was intentional. I knew this before he even began building, that he would have that kind of face. Obviously he's got his wings because he embodies all of the elements, so he can actually fly. These wings were a struggle. I went through so many versions of how the colours would break down, and in the end it was working on a transition between one thing I tried that hadn't worked and then moving on to try something new, essentially using one wing at a time to experiment and compare, and just done on one of those infamous happy little accidents of the transition between the two when I was, altering one wing. I was like, no, that's it. A combination of what I'm trying now and the original. When I say the original, there's probably about 5 different versions before I finished. The original intention here was that he would try to make it look like Aurelian was appearing out of the void, or appearing out of thin air, which would be an ability he possesses. I don't think I really pulled that off necessarily. I've just sort of given it a wispy sort of, I don't know, almost like magic's just pouring off of him. But yeah, I wasn't completely happy with him. I did get enough of the dynamic pose down. He looks a little bad from the front. I think one leg being slightly out would have helped, like actually out to the side rather than just going straight up. He looks too straight up down when you see him from the front. It's not until you get to the side that you go, oh, he's got some serious, motion to him. So this is Elen. Elen was going to be the equivalent of Aurelian in the end dimension. He unfortunately didn't make it that far, and was since reformed, would probably be the best word, into this creature, which is a void dragon, I suppose, embodying the anti-elements. I mean, you need a better name than that, but I don't have one yet. I was generally pleased that I was able eventually to get the extreme curling done. I feel like his head's maybe just a bit awkward, or the neck part. It doesn't look too bad from any one particular angle. Like, if you look from above, it's like, yeah, that seems fine. When you look from the side, it's like, yeah. It's not too bad, a bit janky. And if you look from the end, one end or the other, that's not too bad either. But there's a couple of points where you're moving around, you're like, would he really look like that if he was doing this loop-de-loop corkscrew? One of the things I'm most pleased with, I don't remember when I actually finally had the idea to do it, but it occurred to me while I was still working on him to give the beam some presence. We all know how lighting works in Minecraft. It doesn't project anything other than white light, so you can see that the light is reaching these stones, but of course it has no real impact on it. So I kind of went through and added a little more colour. I think the green is probably not necessary. I think the tuft does the best job of conveying what the black stone might look like if green light was falling on it. But yeah, there's a few hints of it in other locations, and obviously then it carries on through the tail. But I was pleased with this. It's not something that gets done very often that I've seen. Anyway, so moving on to Morn. This is a marker for another thing that will be going in here, Phase 4, or part of Phase 4. The front is largely done. There is decoration to be done on the bodies of each of the mouths. And that would extend up in each tentacle, but kind of structurally speaking, there's only one thing that really needs to be done. I built this intentionally to look like a tree, and I really like the way that it came out, but I realized it doesn't belong here. So there was a attempt to do it again here, which meant destroying what was already here. I don't feel like it came out as well, even before the beam was interfering with the line of sight. I don't think it quite captured in the original, which is just unfortunate. Not really a lot I can do about it. It's just, it's a slightly bigger space, but it just doesn't seem to have come off so well. So you can see I've used lighting again as the beam passes through and smashes through this part a little more. Let me get a brief look in here. I'm going to have to do something about the lighting. I want it to not be lit at the top, but Enderman, they will steal the mud blocks. Let me just knock them away while I'm here. You can take a proper look at what it's supposed to look like. The candles aren't going to matter much. I think they offer a little bit of light, but it still allows Enderman to spawn. I know that, well, it stops them in some areas. I think there's just a couple of spots that they're able to teleport from, maybe. Things of that nature. So yeah, you can see now that I've tried to underlight it from the beam as best as possible with the blocks that are available. Heavily inspired by the tree designs of Brun. That man loves trees. So there's a story here that will be continued as I move back in, but as you can see, the interior has yet to be done. The body needs to go in place before I can do anything about that sort of stuff. Which kind of brings us up to speed, up to the point that I'm working at. I've had a number of mishaps, a number of attempts having to shift what I've already done a little bit, not too drastic. I've gotten on top of the numbers that are being used here to calculate how many increments are involved, because it's basically the circle that was created for the collar is being projected all the way back. And as it lowers, it becomes more angled to connect with the bottom part of it. So there's like a, this is the very top point, and then this is the very low point, although it's being built above the void because it should be down under the void. The bottom there, where it's connecting with a straight line, should be about 70 blocks down. Now, so as I was saying, the line comes through and angles. So it's 241 blocks tall, including the top and bottom blocks. And then if you want it at a right angle, you literally have to go one strip in and down one, like this. But of course, this isn't accurate anymore, because the middle line from the top to what would be the bottom is going to be significantly longer than the 241. It's actually going to be in the region of 260, 270, because you're basically looking at a 45-degree angle means basically 1 squared plus 1 squared divided by, 1 squared plus 1 squared square root of that. And that gives you, I think that's approximately 1.14, something like that. So you're basically extending the length of the line by about 14%. So when I worked it out that it would end over there, but a good 17 blocks down, that's not accurate. It wouldn't be this big, which is probably causing a problem with what I'm doing. But it's the limit of what I'm prepared to do to get the precision and keep something looking fairly decent. Make sure that its body is correct as much as possible. There is actually a flaw in the design of the circle. I eyeballed it, and it wasn't until I was partway through building up the collar that I realized that it actually kind of kinks. Perhaps not as obvious. I think you can see it when you look at the cardigan, as I've taken to calling it, from a distance. But the top is very flat, and then it bows in, and then bows down, and you get the flat side again. It's very close to being, I think, an octagon rather than a circle. It's like a very smoothed out octagon. But I think the decoration's going to hide a lot of that, and it was never important that it be in a perfect tube, all the same width all the way down. But, that's future work. which I will carry on with in just a moment. Maybe next year, well, definitely the end of next year, I'll be done with this. I'll be well done. I know what I've got left to do, and it's not going to take that long. But this still probably is several months still. But that was 2024 in review. I'm going to give us a good, nice picture of the morn, and then say adieu and continue. Oh, here we go. This is the trouble we've got. I'm running around with a 16 render distance. There we go. Now I have to do. Oh, good deal then.